safe, and help them acknowledge when they're being too much in their head and they're overthinking things, and just to accept whatever's going to come out of your mouth. You know, like I'm a very big fan of ad-libbing. Like I get, you know, my artists, you know, like I think it was Pink, a good example. The first time she sat with me and she's like, well, what are we gonna do? I'm like, I have no idea. And she's all, well, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't know, we're gonna put headphones on and I'm gonna play some music. And she's like, well, what is it going to be? I'm like, I don't know, I haven't played it yet. You know, and it's gonna come, and then you're gonna open your mouth and you're just gonna start singing. And she's like, what am I singing? I go, I have no idea. And she's like, so we're going to put headphones on, you're gonna start playing something that you don't know, and I'm going to sing things that I have no idea about. And I'm like, yes. And magic is gonna happen. And sure enough, it did.
And you're diffusing the situation, and she's like, I'm just gonna put my faith in you and roll with it.
Yeah, you know, because I think everyone in this room could, you know, relate to this statement that when we're not thinking, the most brilliant things come. When we're not, you know, you can put the biggest brains in one room and have them try to think of a clever line, and they will never be as smart and as, you know, it won't be as good as the one that just showed up out of your mouth without a thought. It was just like, you know what I mean? And that to me is what I try to teach my artists, is to trust. If you believe that you're supposed to be here, then trust that the words are going to follow.
Yeah. The series is so much about technology and how technology transformed the sound of popular music, but there's a pendulum swing going from this sort of man and machine, like the human element, and then the sort of technical element. That's like a recurring theme of the whole show. You know, I think that when you see the stories about Rick Rubin and about Linda working with Christina, it's really that human element that's there.
Right. What I'm getting is that a good producer is a therapist, bartender, counsel, all these different roles. And they're there to cajole and inspire and suggest, but ultimately get the hell out of the way.
Well, there's also, it's like these very delicate human relationships are at the core of these great works of art.
Well, just as like a counter to that, that's a certain kind of production that makes magic, that illuminates magic. And then there's the Mutt Lange, the Phil Spector, people that didn't get out of the way at all, they sort of got in the way.
Yeah.
That was their entire, there's sort of this famous story of Def Leppard were making Hysteria, which was a record that came out in 1987. And they went to the pub because it took so long to get anything done. And the guitar player, Phil Collins, kind of came to the pub at 6 o'clock, and he'd been in the studio all day, and he's like, I did it, I got it. And they were like, yeah, what'd you record? And he's like, I got 6 bars of this part that Mutt was happy with, the producer, Mutt Lange. And it's a different kind of music, but Def Leppard Hysteria has magic in it as well. And it's like, so the producer, you know, there's all different types of artists, all different types of producers, and that's what makes it such a fucking mystery.
Well, that's also where, you know, like I use an example for the 50s with Phil Spector, like the late 90s, early 2000 was basically the new 50s in a sense, where the producer took over, because in the 70s, it really was about the artist taking over they were producing their records, they were writing their songs, they were creating their sound. Like back in the 50s, these people, they were singers, there were songs, they were producers, and then they went to go find the singers. Basically, that's pretty much all of 2000, you know, like getting the producer, getting the song, and then finding the voice that's going to sing these songs.
Which is what Motown was.
You know, and now we're starting to hit this really great place again where the artists are showing back up, writing their own songs, producing their own records, and we'll see what that to me is why this whole documentary is so important. You know, when you have children out there, you have to show your kids this, because it's very important for them to be, you know, inspired by not what they just heard, but by seeing, like, oh, like, because when you watch that, I mean, I think everyone in here can say, even if you're not a musician, you want to go to a studio or do something and create. I can do something like that, because Because it's, you know, creating is exactly that. It's creating. It's creating however we can do it. It doesn't mean you have to create it like that, but to be inspired to create anything in life. Again, it's all about, you know, being in life and making your own magic.
And what you were saying, the idea for me as an artist, I find, I was talking to you about this, that being intimidated because I'm such a fan of music. I joke, but it's not really a joke, that I like music more than I like people. I was watching this documentary and I was sitting and I'm just like tearing up because it's just, there's so much magic in the world. And as an artist, not having had particularly good producers in my life before a certain point, it was me going into the studio being intimidated by this thing that I knew greatness came from, or the drummer that I wanted played on records that I loved, and I had the opportunity to play with, and it was just so intimidating that I didn't know how to assert myself in the situation. And so someone like Linda, you know, as a producer that is good at what they do is they sort of they bring you out of the experience so that you can sort of stop mind fucking yourself about the process, and sort of just, because really the only thing that matters is the stamp and the fingerprint of the artist making the art, whether it's Phil Spector or whether it's whomever it is, or, you know, Phil Spector to Bob Dylan. The idea is that the only currency we have as human beings is our own unique sort of thought process and our own fucked up way of seeing things, and that it's important for the artist to be heard in that way and to clear a path for it, however that is done.
Do either of you have examples of, you know, regardless of the style of producer or the technology or everything, in every recording session there's some type of happy accident, some sort of strange mystic thing that happens and you go, wait, what was that? And after a while you decide, let's keep it, it's perfect. Do you have any examples of something like that?
For me, I feel like in everything I've done, because I have no idea what I'm doing, so like there's happy accidents everywhere because I'm so open and free to fail. I think that, you know, Don was, when he said that, it's so true. Like, you know, it's those beautiful little mistakes. One time my guy, like, because I don't like to touch Pro Tools, I find it to be like, you know, very dangerous place to go. So I move microphones. You know, when I create sound, it's out there in where the instrument is. I move the microphone until the drums sound good, or the guitar. I don't EQ. I don't want to get near Pro Tools, right? So something happened, and I remember hearing it, you know, because my guy's running it. It happened. I'm like, oh, in my mind, I'm going, oh, I can't wait to get back to that part. It's so amazing. You know, I'm saving that. That's exactly where that's going to be. My guy, without saving, just got rid of that mistake. And I was like, where did that one piece, you know, go where she's saying blah, 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 blah? And he's like, oh, I thought that was a mistake, and so I got rid of it. I'm like, but it's fucking Pro Tools. You can save everything, you know, but he got rid of this thing. So anyway, so I record everything. Like when the artist shows up, I have conversations that you guys, I mean, one day on my deathbed, I have my own documentary, all right? Fucking tell all. But, you know, it's those kind of moments like where, you know, to me, the happy mistake is not knowing what you're doing and then creating this really cool thing.
Right. Like how you kept the don't look at me at the beginning.
Like the don't look at me. Christina, you know, I had no idea that she was the right person to sing the song. And then she came in and I laid down the piano and she, you know, because I'm like, I wrote the song, I'm ugly, I don't feel pretty, I feel very insecure, I'm vulnerable. This is my feelings, you know, and me trying to tell myself, no, you are beautiful, right? And so here's this hot chick, you know, coming in, and Jeannie in the bottle, you know, like, got everything going on, her sexy little body, you know, her Oompa Loompa tan, you know, just like, and I'm like, what's this bitch going to fucking sing about? I am beautiful. You know, they're gonna take it the wrong way. They're gonna think she's an arrogant fucking asshole. And I'm beautiful, you know. So she walks in, and I give her the lyrics, and she brought a friend with her. And the song starts, and she goes, "Don't look at me." And I got chills, and I said, "Oh, she's so insecure. She has no idea that, you know, like she is a beautiful woman that has no idea. That's why she's an asshole, because she's so insecure, you know?" And I love Christina, by the way. She knows I tell her this stuff all the time. But so that was a moment where I just knew I was going to keep that. That's the beginning of my song, and this song truly did belong to her.
I think it's Quincy Jones that says in this first segment that we just saw that it's a very intimate process being a producer. It's dangerous, and you have to be bold. And when you told the story on Forum this morning about running into her at a nightclub and saying, if she was going to record this song, bring your darkness, right?
Yeah, I told her that I didn't know that I was going to be working with her. I wasn't approaching her to work with her. I just finished the Pink album, and I'm still trying to figure out if I'm an artist or a producer, you know, still. So I go to this club, and I see her sitting there, and I had heard she was working on an album, so I walked up to her, and I said, "Hi, I'm Linda Perry." And she's like, "Oh, yeah, I know who you are." And I'm like, "Are you working on an album?" She's like, "Yeah." And I said, "Oh, I just want to tell you, it would be really good if you bring your darkness, your you know, to the record." And she's like, "What do you mean, my darkness?" I go, "It's obviously you're depressed." You know, and she just looked at me.
This is a typical conversation.
And she like literally looked at me, and I said, "Listen, everybody knows you can sing, but no one knows that you can actually feel what you're singing." And she, I mean, it was like a cartoon where the wolf, you know, where the mouth dropped all the way to the floor. And I just turned around and I started walking away. And my friend said, "What did you just say to Christina Aguilera?" And I was like, "That nobody knows that she can feel what she's singing." And he was like, "Oh my God." And I go, "Why?" And he's like, "Because she's still looking at you." And literally a week later, she called me.
We've talked about happy accidents, we've talked about sort of spectacular failures, where you've just overthought something for hours.
I have an entire discography. I mean, I could.
The box said it's
I
coming
could
out
fuck
next
up a
week.
Beatles reunion, like in terms of overthinking it, like everybody getting together. It's just because I love it so much that I want it to work, and I have a vision for how I think it should be, and all of those traits are like assassin bullets to creativity. Like, the more you invest in what you're doing from the perspective of thinking it's so important that you get it to be how you want it to be, the further you get away from what you want. And for me, performing live is a really natural thing. I feel more comfortable in front of humans and that kind of thing. And then getting in a room and feeling under a microscope on a certain level, it's all bets are off. So I've made records in big studios for a lot of money and little studios for no money, and all of them I feel like missed, most of them, the first, if I've made 10 records, I'd say the first 7.5 of them missed the mark. You know, just kind of from being so excited about it and from being so passionate about it and knowing just enough to fuck it up.
Yeah. Like, we talk about this in the creative arts a lot, in painting and writing and making music, that the best moments that happen are when you feel like you are not creating it, you are a conduit through which some ethereal thing is moving.
Well, certainly when you make a film like this, you start to have an idea of what it's going to be, and it's all accidents, things that come up. And documentaries never follow a plan. Like, you have a plan and then you just throw it out the window every day.
How did this morph from its original idea?
I didn't sleep for months trying to figure out the structure of each episode and how one story was going to pass the baton to the next. I mean, that's really the hard part. The discrete individual stories on their own are not so hard to tell. It's just like, how are you going to get from one to the next and not lose your audience? Like, why are we going from, why are we going from Phil Spector to Cat Stevens? It's like that the baton that's being passed has to be crystal clear. So But then, you know, we sort of were reserving space for certain stories, and then we were at the mercy of the artists who were willing to talk to us on camera. So we were waiting for them to say yes. You know, meanwhile, we didn't know how we were going to fill that space if they said no. So it was just a series of accidents. And you start off and it's like you're white knuckling the whole thing, and then you just have to like let it go, and then it'll happen. So
you told a story backstage about Annie Lennox, who obviously puts things into her iPhone calendar because she told you.
No, it's a great example. We're just like, oh, we really want Annie Lennox. We wrote to her and she said, I'll get back to you in 8 months. And we're like, oh, okay. And then her publicist called us 8 months later. It's like, okay, come to London.
To the day.
Yeah. So, but like, there were so many artists that we didn't know if they were going to say yes, that we desperately wanted, and you know, never heard from them again, or they appeared suddenly. So.
Here in San Francisco, we're very excited to see Sly Stone represented.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Truly one of the geniuses. Q-Tip in this segment says, I could talk about Sly and the Family Stone for a very long time. And I want to ask each of you, which producer, artist could you talk about for a very long time? Who maybe when you're in the studio, if you had a bracelet that said WW blank D, who are you thinking of when you're in the studio?
For me, it's almost exclusively U2 in terms of, because they're so not particularly good at what they do, but then they're incredible at what they do. They're like very mortal. The rhythm section is very mortal. Bono, they're human beings. The Beatles I see as these sort of extraordinary, they have all these tools at their disposal. And when I think of U2, I just think that's a band that when they succeed, it's based purely on their passion and their human collision, right? The chemistry of these people. And no matter who the producer was, the Lanois Eno period, you know, the Lily White period, it was all the magical moments for a band that isn't particularly proficient at what they do. They have 15 or 18 magical moments that they captured. And it's like, so to me, U2 is like a really great version of that. And then of course Stevie Wonder, and you know, there's many others, but like for me, I relate to U2 in that way.
Linda? Jeff?
Well, I mean, I hate listing favorites, and in fact, the one thing that kept me awake at night with this series was sort of, I was worried that people would see it as like, these are the most important people to think about, which is not what the message is at all. I really love Nigel Godrich and what he does with Radiohead. I think the sound of their records is so incredible, and I think there's certain music that sort of captures a moment in time and says like, this is who we are right now, and I think to me Radiohead really accomplishes that. Their most recent album is a masterpiece, in my opinion.
Linda, anyone hovering over you when you're in the studio, metaphorically?
No, I honestly, I don't, I'm not like that. I don't like have favorite songs. I don't have favorite records. I don't have favorite anything. For me, it's more, I just love everything, you know, like I really am inspired by music and everything that means. And so I have moments where I'm like watching this and going, oh fuck yeah, god damn it, Roger Waters is amazing, and of course George Martin, but not one stands out as my you know guru. It's just more about, I'm just impressed by anybody who can create music, whether it's someone in this audience, you know, some guy on the street we saw earlier, you know, it's like been so long since I've been back here. I'm like, oh yeah. There's still, okay, here's a question, off subject. There's all these pipe shops on Haight Street, right? But there's a bunch of homeless hippies that are asking for, you know, food and money, but aren't they the ones that are supplying the pipe shops? Like, so where are they getting the money to buy the pipes?
This is another
I
production
mean, I don't
issue.
even understand. But anyways, so but anyway, you know, it's like when people are out on the street playing music, it's so brave. Anybody who gets on stage is so brave, you know. And Matt and I were talking about an artist, you know, that she just released a record, and this girl has an incredible voice. And but I said, you know, I'm rooting for her, but I don't think she's going to make it because she's not stepping into the shoes. You know, she's not stepping in. You got to be a rock star, you know what I mean? And I know I'm talking about glamour. I'm talking about an attitude, you know, like to make it is not just a song, not about just who your producer. You can have George Martin and Yesterday right now in your hands, but if you are not a star and you cannot shine in those shoes and you do not own it, you're not going anywhere. You know, Yesterday, exactly, that's it. That's all you had was Yesterday. You know, and so anyways, that's what we were talking about. Like, so for me, I just love people that love music and create.
They really transcend technology too. We're in a, recording technology has changed so much in the last 15 or 20 years. There's a quote in this segment, technology only gives you the paints, you know. But we have a country of teenagers right now with iPads that have GarageBand or Ableton or Fruity Loops on them.
They have apps that actually perfectly or try to recreate the sound of the mixing boards that Abbey wrote, which is like totally fascinating. They even look like them.
Yeah. What do you want them to get out of this documentary? What sort of fundamentals of recording music and the magic of recording music do you want to convey to the young upstart recording engineer in his bedroom?
Well, I mean, I think that the way we listen to music now is very, it doesn't have any context to it. So if you're like on Spotify and you're listening to this song or that song or this song, you don't understand that it's part of this continuum and this conversation among generations of artists. And I think that that's what our film is trying to accomplish, is to sort of show that conversation has happened and how important it is. And also I think that music is kind of ubiquitous. So a lot of the songs you hear in the series, you can walk down the street and hear 3 of them just on your way home, you know. But you need to understand like the story. Once you hear the story behind the song and how they were created, you really love the song so much more. So I really hope that people take that away from the series.
Linda, when you were playing in the Four Non Blondes here, we talked a bit about the idea of a scene. And San Francisco definitely had a scene in the 80s going into the 90s. We'd sort of, you know, left Huey Lewis and the News and Journeys and these big acts behind, and there were tiny little clubs, the I-Beam, the Kennel Club here, and more. And the idea of cross-pollination came up. You know, we have a lot of people recording in their bedrooms, a lot of people recording in their basements, but you seemed to miss the communal aspect of music.
Yeah, my thing was that today, that yes, anybody can make music. You can sit in your room and it can be just all you. You can sit in your room and you can make this song, and then it's, you know, then you can put it on YouTube and voila, there we are, you know. But what I miss are those scenes, like where, you know, there was the 60s, you know, you had the scene, and then when I lived here and my band, and there was these great bands, and we would, you know, jump on stage of each other, you know, I'd go play tambourine or sing background on, you know, somebody's set, and they would come and do the same on ours, and it was very communal, it was very interactive, and I'm just saying that, like, I feel like we don't have that as much. You know, you do have these really great kids that are sitting in their garage or in their house, but they don't have any concept of knowing how to play live. You know, what rehearsal room is, you know, that, like, kids right now are getting signed from YouTube and then thrown into the studio, you know, to create their sound that they have no idea what it is. So that's why the producer comes in and figure out what this sound, like, it's far better if you already know what your sound is because you rehearsed it, you played shows, you made mistakes, you saw that that song doesn't work, you know, the audience didn't like that one. So I feel there's not that's not as present in today's time, you know. There's so many artists and there's so many bad ones and they're just in the way, you know, they're just in the way of the great stuff, you know.
How do we vote for him?
Ideas in the series is that necessity.
Trump, he's just in the fucking way.
Scary times.
We had a little, the discussion in backstage about the scene thing, and Linda said the idea of the scenes the way that it was. I think that something that I try really hard to remember is that things occur. There's a certain strata of people that do what we were talking about, this sort of YouTube, doing it in their house, but there really is a strata of things that are happening